Hi, my name is Paul Zajac.
And I'm Rob Egan.
And welcome to The Score. This is the part of Boss Battles where we go through the previous episode and assign it a score and talk a little bit about it.
Right. So each of the criteria are going to be scored from a value of 1 to 5. The baseline will be a 3. So we'll go through what we're going to be scoring in just a moment, and you'll just understand how we are getting these values. They'll be both subjective and objective scoring.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about the 3. So unlike, like grades at school where if you don't get like above 80%, you're doing badly. I kind of conceive of this as different. Like 3 is like the fun zone where the average player shows up. Like that's probably, I would get a 3, I think, if I was a player playing D&D. I'm having fun. Everybody's having a good time. If you're above a 3, you've done something exceptional. If you're below the 3, well, you've done something that is not so exceptional. But we really expect these scores to be averaging around a 3. But we're going to tally them in a way that comes up ultimately with a percentage score so they're easy to conceptualize.
Additionally, we're not here to judge how people are playing D&D, though we did need to come up with some sort of criteria on how the session went. We really want to make sure that ideally everyone's having a fun time, and you'll see that in one of the scores as well. With that in mind, let's start talking about the scoring, the criteria.
Right. So we've got 5 objective and 5 subjective criteria. Let's talk about the subjective ones first, I think, right? Yeah. So the first is, we'll just talk about the categories first, and then we'll go into the specifics. So the first is role play, which is just, are you getting into your character either by doing accents, or are you really good at describing what your character is doing?
Exactly. Now, you don't need to do an accent to score well in role play. It really is embodying your character and what they would do in the moment. This is maybe not metagaming, I guess, is as you're
right. Right. If
zone.
You're just like in playing, right. That's a good way to think about it. The next subjective criteria is originality. Did you come up with any really unexpected moves? And then these are the things that I love about the game is like when surprise, you're doing something different.
Absolutely. So with originality, again, this is something that is in the subjective category because we don't know what's going to happen. If you're going to be creative and if you're going to do something that is really shocking and amazing, we want to make sure that you get marks for it. If it's something that you're just playing the game, that's where the 3 will come in.
Right. Next is teamwork. And, did the moves that you pull come together as a team, or were you just kind of each acting individually? I think there's, it's just style-wise, you could just go at it as individuals, and that would probably be like a 3. But did you do something except some really cool combo move that would get you a higher score?
Right, and we all want to make sure that we're working as a team when we play this game, and that's definitely something that we felt was important to score.
The next up is, are you a courteous player? And I think that is so important when you play the game. Do you know what you're going to do when it's your turn, so you're not taking too long? Do you let the other players do their thing versus interrupting them? And that's an important criteria for sure.
And even though we have teamwork as a criteria, this is a little bit different because we want to make sure that you as a player are really making this experience enjoyable for everyone at the table.
Yeah. So maybe that's kind of at a meta level. Am I just doing my thing and not precluding other people from having a good time?
Right. We want to make sure that there's no one that's talking over each other. There's no one that is maybe saying that something was a bad idea or
right.
the wrong way.
Yeah, that sucked.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Nobody wants that. Okay. And then the final subjective criteria is just an overall impression when you watch the video. Was this fun to watch?
Yeah, and that one's again very subjective and pretty straightforward.
Straightforward. Okay, so do we want to get? Let's actually go through the numbers for the subjective criteria first,
Makes
and then
sense.
we'll get on to the. Okay, so for the preseason game, we had 4 of us contributed. Me and you did it, and then we had 2. We had our guest commentator, and then one of the other viewers commentated or submitted scores. So we produced average scores for role play. The average score came out to be a 3.375. I guess we got into the decimals because there were differences of opinion, and when you divide it out, that's what it came to.
Exactly.
So role play aspects that I liked, I really liked Luke's character. I think he had some funny lines. And then other people really contributed to it too. I think James got into his character. Alan, before Alan died and left the adventure, he was into it too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really think that this was a really great session for roleplay. I know you mentioned both Luke and James did a lot. And again, they don't need to have accents, and just embodying your character. I think a 3.375 is really good because it's a little bit above what we were expecting.
A little bit above average. Yeah. Oh, so originality, the average came out to a 2.5. I think that probably stemmed from the fact that the characters were sticking to their roles as what they would do. The monk did flurry of blows and stunning strike. The ranger shot his bow, and the druid supported. And so there were no big surprise moves, and that's probably why they got underneath the 3.
Yeah, I agree. And you don't always need to go for originality. I would say that if you try to shoehorn something that doesn't work to try to get originality, it won't work.
And I think, exactly. I think in this case, they could have tried something tricky, but it was a close battle. They may have really suffered. And one of the other objective or subjective criteria may have suffered if they would have gone for more originality. Hey, I'm going to, launch a birthday balloon off. Well, that's really fun. That's original, but it doesn't do much good in combat.
Exactly. And I know that they scored a little bit below average, and that could just be, again, subjectively. I think that they were right on point, though.
Teamwork, they got a average score of 3.5. And I think they did work well as a team together. Particularly the fairy fire combined with the monk getting in there and just doing flurry of blows and stunning strike. Those two things were synergistic, and we saw that in that stat about how many misses were converted into hits with the fairy fire. That's a combo move that I think showed really good teamwork.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That fairy fire was really great to see, and also you could tell there was discussion, not much metagaming, but more about how they would work together and to set up a move that would help pay off later on in the battle.
The next was being a thoughtful and courteous player. The average was a 2.75. I think that happened because Alan had to leave, right? And so I'm kind of of two minds about that. Life brings you unexpected circumstances, and I get that. At the same time, I think the fact if somebody just leaves in the middle of the game, to some extent, perhaps there could have been more planning ahead of time, and I think that's borne out in this number.
And I agree. And it's not to say that, what happened, whatever circumstances that he was under, though scheduling is one of the hardest parts about D&D. And sometimes you just need to block that off and then not have any distractions, especially when we were trying to, work as a team to defeat a big bad. So
it still wasn't that bad. Nobody got really bad score. And then the final thing was was it fun to watch? And it got scored as a 3.5.
Absolutely, it was a blast.
I did, yes. I thought it was a close. It was a close battle, and they could have very easily died, but survived. And so to me, that was fun. So those are the subjective scores, and now let's go through the objective ones, and then we'll sum them up to give the final score.
Great.
Go ahead.
So for the objectives, we have for the objective criteria, and again, this is something that we can pull directly from the battle and from the stats. The first one is completion. Did they complete the objective? Did the team foil, stop, or kill the big bad?
Yeah. The next one down is how quickly did they do that? And we've given a kind of out of 5 based on how many number of rounds. And so if they complete in 1 or 2 rounds, that's really quick. That gets a 5, and then it goes down progressively after that. This was a long battle. And so we'll see in the end that they didn't do too great on that score. And anyway, next up.
Yeah, next we're going to see the total damage dealt by the party over the total damage dealt and the battle as a whole, as a percentage. So how much of a beating did the party put into the big bad? Did they do them the more damage?
Yeah. So I came up with this number because like we couldn't just do it as total damage dealt because we're comparing different level sessions. Like
Different tiers.
in this tier, there's going to be a level 1 battle compared to a level 5 battle. So obviously the level 5 characters are dealing more damage, but as a percentage of the total damage done in that session, I kind of felt that was a fair way of doing it. So that's
It's great. And then we'll also see later on there might be some battles where they get done very quickly, so the rounds are done quickly because of a spell or something else that just shuts the battle down. But then
right.
But then the total damage might actually hurt
we'll
because
see.
of that.
Attack hit percentage. That was another one that is, we can easily compare from one level to the next. And I don't know what there's to say about that. It kind of explains itself.
Yeah. How much are you landing those attacks?
Martial and spell attacks.
Martial and
right.
spell attacks. And I think the last one, because I'm sure some of you out there are thinking, wait, if you're going to do percent hits for attacks, what about those saving throws? Our next one is percent of time opponents fail saving throws.
Right, because that's key.
Right.
You got to get them to fail.
So like with the Fairy Fire is a great example. Because they're not doing an attack directly, well, we want to see how many of those enemies actually failed, and we can then count that as well.
Okay, so back to scoring it for completion. Yes, they completed it. They got a 5 out of 5, and that one's pretty easy.
Yep.
How quickly did they get it done? They took 7 rounds, I think, and so 7 scores a 1. So we'll see how this works over the first tier, because I don't think they did a bad job. And could they have completed it faster? I'm not sure. It was a dragon, but this is the metric we chose. We'll see how it turns out. They got a 1.
They got a 1.
They got a,
I will say, just from the experience of playing D&D and being involved in lots of games where most battles take between 3 and 4 rounds.
Right.
That's what we're basing this off of, really, to see. That's probably about the average of what most people will get. So having a battle that lasts 7 rounds is definitely outside, like an outlier.
Yeah, it was a little odd because there was like this little bit of a tune-up battle with the Yetis, and then they got into. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But okay. Next was the party damage dealt to the total damage dealt ratio. The party ended up doing 75% of the damage, and so that like 0.75 or 0.75 times 5 turned out to be a 3.65. So pretty good, above a 3. That was a high percentage.
Yeah, and I just want to just take a moment to break out the math there. We're just going to be taking, because we need to do a percentage of the total damage dealt, that's going to give us a number out of 100. We're then multiplying that by 5, or dividing, with to get a number between 1 and 5.
That goes into the ultimate.
That goes into our original scoring criteria.
So similarly, the next one, attack hit percentage, the party hit 81% of their attacks. Like that's
great.
That's huge. That's great. And so that multiplied out by 0.81 times 5 is 4.05. So I mean that kind of shows you that like how good a 4 is, right? Like 81% of your hit rate, that's huge, right? So that was I'd be really interested to see like in other battles if anybody gets higher than that. Like that's a pretty high percentage.
Yeah, that's definitely a high percentage on that. Again, the Fairy Fire definitely going to help with that, because giving advantage to those attacks is huge.
And then the final one was the percentage time that the opponent fails save. I think I got it over here. It multiplied out anyway. It comes to a 4.6. I think it was really, really high.
Well, again, when you have a few number of enemies like we had in this case, and failing the saving throws, that's also going to be a high percentage.
Yeah. Okay, so then we got a total of 10 scores out of 5. We're adding them all up, and that comes out to a score out of 50. Like it would be a percentage score, a total possible score of 50, with adding 10 different scores graded out of 5.
Yep.
And then how we're coming up with the ultimate percentages, we're just multiplying that by 2. To make it out of 100. It's something that people recognize. But also there's one extra twist in that to kind of incentivize people to go ahead and rank these battles, we're going to give each team 1 percentage point every time they submit a score for somebody else's battle. So that's something we talked about in our previous video about the league, but part of this scoring is that the other teams are going to watch these battles and rate them. We're going to so there'll be 4 scores because there's 4 other teams watching. We're going to throw away the top and the bottom score and average out the 2 middle scores. Just to kind of like add some legitimacy. So it's not just like me, Rob, and our guest ranking the battle.
Right. We want to make sure that when we catch those outliers, that they are going to be averaged in. So that's why we're dropping the lowest and the highest. But we also want more scores to make that average really more meaningful. Because the more scores we have, the closer it is going to be to that actually average score.
So the final score?
And well,
I'm gonna have to find out because I crumpled it up here.
While you uncrumple the final score, surprise, we also are going to talk about the DM plus or minus. So for each of the battles, the DM will also get there will also be a +1, 0, 0, or -1 to the score, depending on the DM. Because sometimes there are calls that when you're in the battle, you might make a call that is maybe favorable to the team or unfavorable. So if it is favorable, maybe that team will have 1 percentage point knockdown or given a percentage point, which in the end can make a difference. But we also want to recognize that sometimes a DM can make a call in the moment that weighs the way that it shouldn't have.
It's definitely going to happen. It's going to happen, right? Yeah. And so was it so egregious that it affected the battle? We wanted to give people a opportunity to express that and just have it play into the ranking somehow. Okay, so we got the number. So out of 100, this battle scored at a 67.45, which if you think the average, if 3 is the average, it would be a 60. So they're well above average. And this is the baseline. Let's see how the rest of the league plays out. Of course, I'm biased because I ran the game and I was part of the game, but it really was exciting, close, and I did like how they worked well together.
I think it was a really great match. I'm really excited to see more of the 2024 rules as we continue these battles because there were some really, I think, there were some really exciting opportunities, especially with like weapon masteries and other pieces that the martial characters got to use. So yeah, this is a great baseline. They did better than average, and it's going to be really good to see where everyone else comes in.
Last is, what did you think? Do you agree with the score? Would you give it higher or lower? Let us know. We're interested.
Yeah, and if there's other criteria that we may be missing or things that you think should be added, we can change those. So let us know.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for the score, and we'll see you next time for a battle.
Take care.
Bye.